Dawn was approaching. The sun began to creep over the horizon and splash its light between the dense trees in their canopy. It provided little warmth to the cold air, and the rolling wind rushed over the forest floor. It was an insult to injury. The remnant of a large fire still smoldered as 5 men slept on the cold, hard earth around it. A silver-haired man, older than the younger men sleeping nearby, sat on a rock, slowly sharpening a sword resting on his lap. He kept his eyes high and alert after each slow pass of the whetstone. Though he remained vigilant, the wear and fatigue across his visage could not be hidden. His armor was dented and mud-caked, and he inspected the great burrs that ran along the edge of his weapon. A short gust of cold air steamed as it left his lips, and the sound of a sigh and a groan as he slowly pulled himself to his feet and turned around to face the edge of the small clearing. 2 soldiers approached quietly in the early morning light. The tall man sheathed his weapon and approached them. "Any sign of them?" One of the soldiers shook his head slowly, still attempting to catch his breath.
"I think we've lost him, sir."
The second spoke in a hushed voice.
"We stayed quiet and waited all night for any sign of them tracking us."
The older man nodded slowly and hesitated before asking, "And Timon's remains?"
"Nothing to report, sir,"
the first responded after a moment.
Wishful thinking. I suppose ogres tend to not leave much behind.
After a moment in silence, the second recruit groaned and aggressively rubbed his face.
"What are we doing out here, Sildar? Why are we doing this? Fighting off bandits along the road is one thing, but getting hunted and eaten by ogres? Chased by owlbears? For what? Checking in on someone's mother?"
The first scout placed his hand on his friend's shoulder, trying to get him to relax.
"Zagriff, not like this."
The tall man with silver hair heard rustling behind him and turned to see the other men lying around the fire waking up from the sounds of voices. The disgruntled soldier shrugged his friend's hand away and addressed Sildar again, moving in closer to him in a somewhat show of opposition and defiance.
"Is it worth it? Was it worth Timon's life? What about the rest of our lives, Sildar?"
Another slow steaming of air escaped Sildar's lips, and in a blur of motion, his hands were gripped tightly around the scout's leather tunic, the wear and fatigue in his face fading away to reveal the fierce and gruff face of a veteran soldier. His eyes became cold and calculating as he pulled the scout in close, his voice commanding and strong.
You do not question what I say, soldier. You do as you are told and nothing more. If I tell you to feed your leg to an ogre, you respond with right or left. You are a soldier of the Neverwinter Guard, and you will refer to me as captain and nothing more.
With a quick force forward, he tossed the scout back and watched him lose his footing along with his sudden burst of confidence.
You can leave if you want. I won't stop you. Go. Travel back to the village of Longside. It's only, give or take, 100 miles south of here. But know that if you do happen to make it back alive, I will see you hanged for treason and desertion in your line of duty.
The scout, sitting on the ground, utterly demoralized, lowered his head in his sudden realization and shame.
"Yes, sir. Forgive me, Captain."
He raised his head to see Sildar's outstretched hand. He grasped it and was pulled to his feet effortlessly. Sildar's stern face gave him a quick nod of the head in acceptance before turning to face the main party.
Soldiers of Neverwinter, you are tired. You are hungry. You want to go home. I know Zagriff here is not alone in his thoughts.
He paused for a moment to study each of their faces.
Timmons was a great soldier. Though he was still a recruit, he showed great potential, and I promise...
Another long gust of steam escaped Sildar's lips.
I assure you, his death was not in vain. What we do here may not be clear to you yet, but we are on a mission of utmost importance. One of which that could, depending on the outcome, hold the fate of the Sword Coast and all we have ever known. I know this is the farthest most of you have ever been, but we are almost there. Today, beyond the outskirts of Lurkwood Forest, we shall reach our destination. What lies in wait for us upon arrival, we do not yet know, but we must be ready for the worst. The Black Spider is not to be underestimated.
Sildar turned to face the scouts once more.
It has been a difficult journey, but I will need you all behind me now. The hardest could lie before us still.
With a raise of his sword above his head, his voice cool and low,
For the Sword Coast.
the 7 young soldiers trade glances with each other and look back to Sildar. One by one, swords began to raise toward the brightening sky above.